LessWrong.com. I also happen to run this campus. Thank you. Chris, how about you introduce yourself?
My name is Chris Best. I am the founder and CEO of Substack, another online essay platform. Thank you.
Yeah, a really enormous thank you. I've been a decade ago. I started getting into just thinking about online essays and seeing kind of like a lot of the internet move towards social media, moving towards Twitter, and Substack was really like, in some sense, the biggest shift of the internet that I'm just like extremely grateful for. Just like you have made the internet, like long-form internet essay, like a mainstay of the internet again, as like WordPress and the blogs were dying, slowly everything moving over to Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff, and I'm just like incredibly grateful to you for that.
Well, thank you. I just needed something to read,
Yeah, I mean, that's also how I felt when we got started with LessWrong. I was just like, look, man, like, if I don't do this, like, what am I going to spend my time doing? You gotta get the office ready. Okay, so the topic of today is, I think we have both chosen a kind of funny time in history to build long-form internet essay platforms. We, I think, just both pulled them together just before most of the writing on the internet has become AI written, and most of the traffic of the internet has become AIs reading the traffic on the internet. And I think we both are pretty confused about what this will mean for the future of long-form writing. I mean, I'm also confused what it means for the future of humanity, but we are going to be focusing on specifically the essay and intellectual idea exchange part. So I guess you kind of come in with like, when we asked you, what would you want to talk about? You're like, let's be confused about the future of the essay, long-form internet writing. Do you want to give a small introduction of like where you're currently at?
Yeah, I pitched this as noticing that we're confused because I don't feel like I have great answers, but I have what feel like increasingly interesting questions. This has been sort of my experience of the AI moment that we're in. It sort of feels like there's a bunch of fundamental philosophical questions about like what we're doing and why and what the value of things are that I actually never knew the answer to, but now I'm suddenly forced to confront the fact that I don't know the answer. It's like all of these like philosophical questions suddenly become kind of urgently practical.
Yeah, I guess I was reminded of, a few years ago there was that XKCD that was like, when the spam bots like finally write good internet comments, we like fucking won. And like it turns out the spam bots do now write internet comments indistinguishable from other people on my platform, and we didn't fucking win.
We did not win.
And so clearly it means something must have gone wrong in my models. Like I kind of did think that XKCD had a point, and now I'm like, okay, something was missing in that.
I'll give you the titles of the two Substack posts that I pitched as the title for this. One is by Sasha Chapin. Books are subjectivity-merging devices, not efficient information transfer devices. And the other is Sam Chris. If you let AI do your writing, I will come to your house and kill you. Subhead, did you think I wouldn't be able to tell? I can tell. And I think those things kind of like sum up sort of this objective experience I've been having going through this period. On Substack, we're very pro, editorial freedom. It's your thing, it's your place. We don't have a lot of rules about what you can put. This includes, you can put AI things, you can put things that are assisted, you can put whatever you want. I'm kind of, let the flowers bloom, see what happens, let people kind of cook, create an incentive system that can reward things that people actually value. And then I've been having this experience where I feel like I'm losing my mind on the internet. It's actually not worst on Substack. On Substack, it's relatively better than other places. But the worst version of for me is this like invasion of the body snatchers feeling I have. Yeah. When somebody that I know, somebody that is smart, somebody whose writing I follow, I start reading, testing. I start reading their tweet, and I get like 6 words in, and I'm like, this is just Claude.
Yeah.
This is just, and it's not just like a little bit Claude. This is like the sloppiest slop that ever slopped.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was Hacker News. Like, sometime in the last 6 months, like, my experience of reading the front page of Hacker News has just become, like, kind of a, like, constant feeling of paranoia. Like, I see the title of a post, and I'm like, oh, God, is that AI written? I click into it, I read the first paragraph, and, like, I'm just looking out for the tells. And it's just, like, I can't stop myself, because I will immediately stop reading when I find it. And it's just, like, and then I read the comments, and it's, like, everyone is super excited about it, and nobody gets it, and I just feel so gassed. It's like, don't you see it? Don't you see that there's no human behind this essay right now?
But okay, but why does it matter? Are we shaking our fists at the sky at having some strange, weird fixation on human meat fingers typing out essays, and future generations, my son sitting in the front row will read his essays and won't care if a machine made it, and he'll laugh at us for our backwards ways? Or like, why does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think I currently have 2 models that seem both very relevant, that are like at the core of my understanding of this. One of them, there's another post on LessWrong that I really, really like called LLM-generated text is not testimony. And like the core idea of the post is that like when people write internet essays, and I think the post is actually related to the Sasha Chapin essay you just mentioned. Like when people write things on the internet, it's not just the case that like they are making statements that you can independently verify. It's that they're speaking from a certain worldview. They're like expressing their observations. Like you can notice what terms they use, and those terms are going to be shaped by their experience. Like if there's somebody who has worked in economics, somebody who has worked in like maybe even fashion, you can tell from the terms that they use about how they view the world. You can tell from the sentence constructions that they have about like a lot of different ways in which like they are perceiving the world. And like that feels to me as like a huge fraction of what I get out of internet writing. Like a thing that I like is like by reading a lot of someone's writing, I feel like I end up pretty reliably with a shoulder version of them that like I can consult. And then like I have the shoulder version of like, I mean, for many years, Scott Alexander, for many years, Eliezer, but also many other authors that I'm a huge fan of. And like, that feels to me like it doesn't happen when I read the LLM writing. Like, there is a single Claude. I have a shoulder Claude, but it's the same Claude across all of them. And so that's one of them. I think the other big thing that is a core point of the essay is that, like, this has like been very important on LessWrong. Like, when you make a statement in an essay, there is a sense in which I will believe that statement in substantial parts because you put your honor behind it. Like, it's like, I once learned when I was, in Idaho, like, that X happened. And, like, I made these observations. And there's, like, a sense in which, like, you could have made all of that up, but you didn't make it up. Because, like, humans don't just lie to each other. There's, like, a sense in which, like, your statement is testimony. Like, I can use it in a social context to, like, hold you accountable to the things that you said. And for AI-written content on LessWrong, it's like so common that somebody will submit an AI-written content, like a piece of AI-written content, and there's an implication of their writing, and then I call them out and be like, wait, is this true? And they respond with like, oh no, that part Claude wrote, that doesn't quite, actually I wouldn't quite write that, that's not really quite what I would say. And I'm like, oh my God, like, look, I could only make sense of your essay like because I understood you as like giving testimony in this context about what happened to you and what you believe and what you think. And we lose that attribute of testimony whenever you use Claude to like, speak for you.
Yeah, it's like if I wanted to ask Claude, I could have asked Claude. And if you want to, just send me the prompt. Don't send me your Claude thing.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the second point. Like, it's like the first point is this like AI writing as testimony that feels like very core to my worldview of like I can rely on it. But the second point is also just this idea of like if the only thing that you did was to give Claude a prompt, then there is a sense in which like, the whole complexity of your essay must be capable of being summarized in like your prompt plus what Claude would tell me. And so there's a sense in which like I'm just reading. Claude didn't have that much to work with to write your whole essay.
So how are you handling it on LessWrong? What's your policy for AI writing?
I mean, we've been going like the central policy, and I've thought a lot about this. I like had lots of conversations with lots of our core authors, and we thought a lot about this. And the thing that we settled on is, it is okay for you to use AI writing however you want. You just have to disclose it. And if you do not disclose it, we will just reject your content outright. And like luckily, at roughly the same time, Pangram kind of came up onto the scene, and Pangram is the one AI detector that is actually pretty reliable. And so now we just like have as our policy, like whenever you submit any post to LessWrong, we have Pangram run on it. We exclude, like we have a special like type of content block that's an LLM content block where you can say like what model output is, has like a tiny annotation. We strip all of those from your post, and then we check, does the remaining content rank above a greater than a 0.2 score on Pangram? If yes, automatic reject. Don't get to go through. And then also separately, we have a human review step where we like check, like especially the ones that like rank 0.15 or something. And we like check whether a section of your post is still AI generated, and then we like reach out to you and maybe ask you to put it into an Elm content block or something. But like, that is, like, we're very strict about that because that's kind of centrally driven by this idea of AI written, like, of writing as testimony. Just like, it is completely okay for you to add Claude testimony. It's just really important that whenever you say I, that is a sentence that you say. And whenever, Claude writes anything, Claude can say I, but then it needs to be in a content block that indicates that the author of that section is Claude, not you.
And how is that different? Like if I was writing a LessWrong post, but I had a human editor, I had my friend look over it. They maybe wrote some of the different sentences. I'm working with them. But this is like when people write books, they'll use human editors. Sometimes they'll use ghostwriters. Like, do you think that's fundamentally different?
It's actually, this is really interesting because I think in some sense our policy is actually a continuation of a long-term, very controversial policy we've had on LessWrong for a long time, which is that we don't allow organizational accounts. Like people for years have been like, hey, can I please, like, Meta, like, have an organizational account? Can Miri have an organizational account? And I've been like, no, sorry. Posts are written by a person. Maybe posts are written by multiple people, co-authorship is real, fine. But at least it needs to be a finite set of people that if I go to every single one in a list of authors and I try to get you to defend what is in this essay, there's a specific person who's like responsible. And ideally, it's written in a personal tone that like says I instead of we. And so that's been like a long-running policy. And I think it's actually very similar. Like I think a thing that happens when corporations and like large organizations release statements is actually very similar in vibe to what happens when Claude writes something. Like I look at it and like, what on earth does it mean for like Microsoft to release a statement saying we believe? And I'm like, nothing, like your organizational institution does not have a map of the world that like meaningfully corresponds in like a way that like believing makes sense. Like the CEO can believe something, the people can believe something. Maybe even you all agreed that like you want to say something or you all want to say that you all believe something, but like the organization trying to ascribe beliefs to an organization just like really has always felt off to me. And so like in some sense the Claude policy here or like the AI policy feels to me like a natural continuation of that.
Very interesting. So if we started to narrow down, if I started this conversation completely philosophically perplexed about what the point of an essay on the internet is, I'm like, a lot of people seem to be writing these things, a lot of them seem to be reading them. I don't know why. I don't know what that's for. I don't know what that thing does. If we take your received policy as a guide, we could start to rule some things out maybe. For example, I might say, the point of an essay is to make a good argument. I could string together a series of logic. I could make a bunch of statements that kind of like proceed from some premises and go towards a conclusion. And the value of that logical reasoning is one thing that I could be getting from, especially on LessWrong, I could be getting from an essay. And I think if that were the point, Claude would be just as good, right?
I mean, this is actually really interesting. In a sense, I think I was much more sympathetic to this until both the mathematics community and the open source software community ended up like in substantial chunks of those communities banning AI submitted content. And you would be like, come on, it's math. You just submit a proof. The only thing that matters is whether the proof is valid. But like, no, turns out like actually a huge chunk of the professional exchange of ideas between mathematicians relies on statements as testimony. Well, you're like, you say that you proved X, but a lot of what you're saying with that is like, I verified the proof myself, and I'm putting a decent chunk of my professional reputation behind the fact that like this is the case. And similarly, when you have a program, you like, the AI can say it tested it, but like without like, actually, like a lot of the time, you just want a professional engineer who like has some professional reputation to put their like to give testimony that the code that they've written is high quality. And that's like the only way to meaningfully handle complicated open source contributions. And so I'm like, even in these domains where in some sense we think verification is the easiest, like software or mathematics, I actually think it's just a case that like you can't purely rely on verification. And so I think like, in some sense, if we were in a domain of full formal verification, like you could do this. And I think that's actually some of the domain where we have seen the most progress with with using AI, like things like frontier math and domains like that, and like we've seen mathematical conjectures fall. But I just think like very, very few parts of like human endeavors are structured such that like you can run things, like verification is so much cheaper than generation that it just kind of checks out. I think that I'm curious from you about when I think the essay. I mean, I liked the Sam Chris essay. It was evocative and gave me a lot of feelings. But the other essay actually is one that I've been thinking about for longer, which is the Sasha Chapin, like the point of, what was the title again?
Books are a subjectivity-merging device or technology, not a information delivery.
Yeah. So do you briefly want to summarize, like, and that seems clearly relevant to like answering what is the point of an essay?
Yeah, I mean, I think the title kind of says it, right? It's the thesis is, the reason you read a book is not to get an argument, not to get a bunch of information, not to get a series of facts or a sequence of things. It's kind of like you are, to some extent, deliberately submitting yourself to the perspective of the author, right? You talked about having the person on your shoulder. You are opening up your mind and allowing yourself to be changed, at least temporarily. At least while you're reading, you're putting on this subjective feeling of kind of being in the mental process of somebody else. And you're sort of like letting that into your mind, you're entertaining that voice and thought, and probably realistically, that thing is leaving an impression on you. It's changing you in some way. At least at minimum, you're gonna be able to model that perspective in the future. And probably at maximum, it's gonna actually change your own default thought and how I'm actually not summarizing the essay anymore. I'm extrapolating with my own theories now. So don't blame Sasha if any of this is stupid. And I think everyone has this experience, right? Like people, you've read many books in your life.
Yeah.
If somebody asked you, hey, what's in all those books? You would probably struggle to give a very good description of it. And yet the books change you. They've left you different in some way. And so to some extent, when you read a long-form piece of writing, you're inviting somebody else into you to change yourself.
Interesting. In some sense, it feels to me like that is one thing that the AIs could be pretty decent at. And in some sense, it's actually one of the domains where I guess I felt the best. Like one of the domains that I found actually like the AI systems most useful is to like the AIs are really good at imitating experts from like any domain, and they're like much more patient than any guy I can call up on the phone. So when I'm like in a domain like, I've had interest over the last few years in understanding Berkeley and California zoning and construction law in a lot of detail.
Oh dear.
And indeed, like one of the things that has been extremely, hello, what did you do? Oh, boop, doop, 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 doop. One of the things that's been extremely useful is just like I now, like it's not even that the AI is telling me all the relevant facts. It's that like I do feel like I can talk to the AI system as kind of an expert in zoning management for hours. And the thing that's most helpful is more like it starts using these terms. It starts using like all of these abstractions of like how it even gives an explanation, like ties together. So in some sense, it feels to me like because the AI is actually capable of imitating experts in basically arbitrary domains, that seems like actually a really great tool. But I haven't gotten a sense that anyone has like successfully like curated a large set of AI output that like helps me like become an expert in a new domain. And maybe the answer is, well, we're fucked. We built a wrong platform. ChatGPT will take our lunch in this domain, and neither LessWrong nor Substack will help.
I sometimes think about like, how am I navigating this time? I'm running a company. I'm noticing that all of my philosophical underpinning of what it all means and what we're doing is woefully insufficient to the task. And I think it's helpful in those cases to, I think of it as like turning on my stupid brain a little bit, like just noticing what I'm thinking and feeling. And you just mentioned the thing of like, you can talk to you can talk to Claude for hours about zoning. You're probing into something that you're interested in. A feeling that I have is I can do that too. I think a lot of people can do that. But then when somebody else sends you something written by Claude, like when I see those boxes, I have the same feeling I have when somebody else tells me about their dream.
Interesting.
Does anybody ever try to tell you at great length about something they dreamt? And almost every time, it's just the most boring thing in the world. It's so meaningful to them. It's part of their kind of like inner life that has something. But almost, unless you're like a brilliant storyteller or have some point to it, hearing about somebody else's dream is kind of the dullest thing in the world. And that's why of those two essays, I kind of found the Sam Chris one almost more useful and persuasive, because I don't have a good theory of what is the value here and where is this all going and are we actually obsolete and clinging on to something. But I definitely recognize the thing that I see there, which is like, oh my God, you cannot send me this slop. You cannot send me a thing, I'm reading something and it's just obviously written by the robot. And it just turns to dust. It turns to ash in my mouth. I can't take it seriously anymore. And I'm in the absence of having a beautiful theory to explain it. I think it's productive to at least follow that instinct, as it seems that you have with your platform.
Yeah, I guess that makes me most curious about do you have any counterexample? Like, do you have an instance in your life where like somebody did send you like some clearly AI written content, like maybe it was an employee of yours, and be like, here's an analysis of something. Like, what are the best instances of like people doing that in like the vague domain of long form writing?
I don't think I have it in long form writing. I will admit that I listened a few times to the. I think it was I couldn't tell if it was an April Fool's thing, but somebody put out a LessWrong, like a Suno-generated set of music about various like AI.
That was me.
Was that
me
you?
and my team. Yeah, we made the Fuming Shogoff's album.
The Fuming Shogoff's album.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good.
Oh,
I've been
well,
listening
thank
to it.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked it out, I would recommend it. My son Ben is sick of me putting it on in the car because he'd rather hear his own music. But
well, thank you.
So why is that good? Or why do I think that's good? Maybe it's I have no taste.
Well,
it's very possible.
I tried to put my soul into it, surprisingly much. Yeah, that now I feel like put on the spot of like, well, like I really tried to make that. Yeah, I do think maybe one of the things that was true there, and like I think maybe that points towards the answer. Like when we made the Fuming Shogoff's album, we sampled like a ridiculous amount. Like we had the guys from Suno call us up. Like I made a post where we like announced the album, and we were like, for every song in this album, we generated like 1,500 to 2,000 songs. And just like at some point, I got used to listening to music at 2.5x speed, using my like HTML5 video player thing, just so I could listen to the song generations faster. Because like you can tell whether a song is coming together like in the first few seconds. And so I would just sit there and be like, for like literal hours, be like, okay, like AGI into EMH, like how the fuck are we going to make a song out of that? Really not prime song material. But like, if you sample enough, and I do think that like that actually is like, a non-trivial number of bits, like 1,500 generations of songs. Like I do think that's like maybe among the single most curated pieces of AI writing on the internet. And like also the Suno guys reached out to us and were like, okay, I think you up.
They told you have not been a good user.
That's it. Actually, I think they gave me immediate access to the private beta program, which was great. Particularly nice because in the private beta program, don't tell them that, but in the private beta program, they don't have all of their copyright restrictions active, and so like when they release new features, I often like get to experiment with like making all the like Suno derivations of the copyrighted songs. I like haven't put any of them onto the albums because that would feel bad, but like that actually has allowed me to. I feel like I got to explore like a part of AI generated music that nobody else in the world has got to explore yet.
Okay, but let me put on my bitter pill hat or my skeptic's hat.
Yeah.
And it just sounds to me, if I take a step back and you're like, well, I put my heart and soul into it. I cared about it. All of these, like, it sounds sort of like airy fuzzy. Surely, give it 6 months, give it 12 months, give it 18 months, and somehow I'll stop gagging when I see Hunter Biden posts half of his stuff is obviously him, and then half of it is like his recovery stuff. I'm like, you had ChatGPT write this.
Yeah.
But surely that will go away. Surely we'll get to a point where, it could make just as impressive a Fuming Shoggoth's album, or just as impressive as a LessWrong post. What is the reason? Is there any reason why that won't just happen, and that everything we're talking about and doing here is going to be sort of like this temporary artifact in this between times period where it's somehow super intelligent except completely crap at writing essays that don't suck?
Yeah, I do think that like my leading hypothesis is that what's going on is just that the systems are like not quite smart enough, and we're picking up on that, and just like not quite pulling things together. And I think like I've experienced this the most in coding, which I do every day. I do software development, and it's just like very solidly. I think it was December last year that was like the break-even point of just like AI code was clearly sloppy, and like you would write it, but you would feel like, God, like actually that just like is not at all the appropriate abstraction for the right context. Like it feels like you're just like mashing together a bunch of random piles of code from the internet that does get the job done, I guess, technically, arguably, but like you would feel bad. And then like December, like last year, like I would just like, I think it was over like Christmas break, like I was working with the models, and I was just like, holy shit, no. Like these are now writing code that's like as good as my code a lot of the time. And then like in the 3 precious days of Fable that I had, like I could see that like, oh no, that system is like, it's not as good as I am in all respects of software engineering, but it's like, yep, it has just passed the threshold. Like we're now at a point where it just like writes most code better than I do. And my honest best guess is like we are going to see similar things like in AI music generation, in essay writing, in poetry, like over the next year. I still think you will have these huge testimony issues. You will have these like other issues. But in terms of like, will things still feel like slop? Maybe. I'm like 50-50. I'm like 50-50 that like, yeah, this is the last year where like the humans get to write like the best. Well, I don't know. The best internet essay like can last for a while, but like. That's my best guess. But leaning into the worlds where like I think it's not just raw intelligence, but there's a few other dimensions that are relevant.
It's kind of fun not knowing. It's kind of fun. I mean, not in the sense of we should preserve that, but it's kind of fun to be in this time where it's like, I have no idea. I have no idea what it would even mean to be the better essay. Can I try one crazy idea on you and see if anything sticks?
Yeah.
And this is not mine at all. This is something I'm stealing wholesale from Robin Sloan, who came to a Substack debate, and there was a debate about can an AI have taste? And he made mistakes are mine, but he made the following argument, which is, do you remember Move? Was it Move 47?
Yeah, it was whatever the God hand move in the game against Lee Sedol was.
As the Go AIs were, becoming superhuman, there was a game against the Reigning Master where it made a move that at first blush looked totally insane.
Yeah.
And then after the fact, people sort of realized that it was secretly genius and beautiful and kind of subjectively beautiful and wonderful, and it opened up whole classes of new human play that people then explored, and the standard of human play got much better because you had discovered this thing. Yeah. And the argument that Robin made was, isn't it interesting to think about, okay, so this is an example people will cite as something his debate, his Jasmine, who I think is here somewhere, was arguing as like an example of an AI having taste. And he said, isn't it interesting that while it was in its self-training mode, its self-play mode, it probably made hundreds or thousands or millions of moves that are just as brilliant, just as beautiful, just as, in every kind of like objective sense, just as, creative. And yet those are kind of like fundamentally unknown and fundamentally meaningless.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like it must be the same true in code. Like I wonder like how many like extremely beautiful pieces of code were generated during the last training run of Opus or Fable.
I'm starting to wonder if code might be different than essays.
Okay.
I think code eventually, like, you just want it to do the thing. I want something else. It's an instrumental thing. And if it does it, and if it does it in a clever way or a beautiful way, so much the better. You can certainly have code that feels like art. But I'm starting to wonder if if we're missing something else. I don't know what it is. I'm still confused.
Yeah, I mean, the big hypothesis that I have about like how things will go is just like the verification issue. Like, in some sense, like the fundamental problem that like anyone working on AI safety and AI alignment has been talking about for a really long time is just like, well, we know how to train AIs to do things that we can verify are working. And just like whenever you have a closed feedback loop, you can just like send the training process on its own. It can generate tens and tens of thousands of candidate solutions. You can score them. You can backpropagate the ones that work. You can punish the ones that clearly didn't work. That like in the domains where we can verify. And like code is one of the most verifiable domains. As you said, you just want it to work. But like in the ethics space, we don't have that, or at least not easily. Like we have RLHF raters, and then I mean, like definitely one of the hypotheses that I have for just what's going on is like in the AI writing, it's just like you have the RLHF training of like reward for like reinforcement learning from human feedback. My current understanding is just like the people who are responsible for rating whether a response is like good in domains that are not verifiable are like largely like random people, like often like offshore. Sometimes, relatively low-paid people who just like are being given a task of like, is the AI successfully answering the question? I think there was a meme going around. I don't actually know how true that is. That like the right style of the AIs is like very similar to Nigerian English because that's like where they hide a lot of the RLHF raters.
I feel like I've read that Scott essay.
And so like one of the domains is like, well, we don't know how to verify. And so in some sense, I guess that means that like even as much as we want intellectual progress, like one of the things that I've been thinking about is like, does this mean that like actually all my effort should go into figuring out how to verify the quality of an essay?
I'm going to take a short...
That's right.
Hey, Ben, are you doing okay? Okay, awesome.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ben. Sorry for taking your dad away.
All right. I feel like a good essay, we should get to questions soon.
Yeah, let's do it.
I feel like a good essay changes what I want. I feel like I couldn't provide a good verification schema.
I mean,
for
that's
the
like
kind of essay I want to read because I don't know what I want before because that's the job that the essay does for me.
I mean, I'm now going to go all the way into AI alignment. I'm just like one of the things that's like I think is like the scariest about how to make the future of like with AI go well and right, is like I think it's possible to get to a point where an AI like does roughly the things that I ask it to. Like there's something like in that space that's possible, but there's this very fundamental problem of like how do we get to a point where like an AI changes its morality or like changes its understanding of what is good and bad in the same way as we would change our like conception of what is good and bad as we encounter like new arguments and evidence. And like this has always felt to me like many people are like, oh, I think AI will be good. Like, look, man, the AIs understand like good and bad pretty well. Like you can talk to Claude, you can talk about ethics about it. It's extremely knowledgeable about ethics. But I think one of the things that I think the AI is actually much worse at, and is like a really non-trivial chunk of where my concern about the future comes from, is that the AIs, like if the AI reads an essay, will it get changed in the same way as I do? And that's like one of the things. I'm like, I think the way I respond to an essay is just like very different to like how I expect an AI to respond to an essay. And like similarly, like trying to generate essays that change me in ways I endorse feels to me like one of the trickiest problems in ethics. Like there's this, like one of the things that you like obsess about in AI alignment is like how do you distinguish persuasion from informing someone? Just like how do you figure out what kind of change do you endorse having done to you? Sometimes you want to be convinced of something because you would rather be the person that you are after you're convinced of the thing. But sometimes other things you're like, oh no, like that's manipulation. And drawing the line between manipulation and informing feels like very tricky. And this feels related to like, how do I get AIs to like write essays to change me in ways that I want? Because I have such a bad feedback loop. Like I don't know when an essay changes me in ways that I want, and I can't tell afterwards. Because I'm not a changed person.
I think we have no idea. I think we came into this conversation confused. I, for one, am leaving confused. I find it very exciting. I find it
very terrifying.
I find it very interesting. It's more fun, I think, sometimes to be playing a game where we don't know what all the rules are.
It certainly is an interesting time to be alive.
Should we throw it open to questions from
Yeah,
the crowd?
let's do it. Can I have a volunteer ship? Great. We have a mic over here. We have a person asking a question over here. Thank you, Lydia.
Hello. Well, thank you both for being here. I am a big fan of both of your products. I think they're great. I've gotten a ton of value out of both of them. This question is for Chris, because I think only Chris has this question in his product, but if you have a way of reflecting on it, I'm also interested. So my general impression of Substack is you're pretty laser focused on monetizing through payments, direct payments to creators, and that part of the motivation here is like that you, as a company, believe that like direct payments to creators are just a better business model in terms of keeping the product like on track over time. I think I've read various founders saying things like this, but maybe I'm misremembering. So I'm curious if you all have been trying to track the impact of AI in writing on like creator payments. Like which accounts are getting payments, whether there have been like changes in which accounts are getting payments, anything, like basically any data you have on that, I think is really interesting to me. Like are people voluntarily, how much are people like voluntarily sending money to writers who use AI? A lot, a little, et cetera?
I would say not a lot. Almost all of the things that make a lot of money on Substack are 100% human, but not zero. And it does raise an interesting, this is one place where I feel like there's a kind of a good line to draw, which is, I don't want to create a rule that says, hey, you can or can't use this stuff. But I do think that there's an argument to be made that it's sort of analogous to catfishing in some way, right? Clank fishing, if you will. If I am, if I'm reading something and I think that I like it, but I like it under the false pretenses of thinking that it was, I'm getting a testimony, I'm getting a perspective, I'm merging my subjectivity with somebody that I care about. But in fact, I'm fooled, and it's actually just Claude, or it's actually just something else. I think there's a pretty good argument that that's deceptive, and that it's better to at least, use the policy that you have and at least have that be realized. It's a very interesting question. Like so far, I would say not very much. So far, it's pretty on the margins, but non-zero. And yeah, it's interesting to think what happens if it changes.
Have you considered adding any like mandatory AI screening to like Substack? Like, my sense is you don't want to, but I'm just kind of curious.
No comment. We're thinking about this stuff. I'm not going to set rules of what people can do, but this is something I'm thinking about on the platform.
Mike?
Hey there. Thanks both of you for this. This has been awesome, very interesting. This question is for Chris. Are you interested in adding HTML support to Substack? Charts?
We're adding it in pieces. The only reason it's not already all there is because there's kind of security. There's like security implications and other implications. We are interested. We're doing it in pieces. Thank you for the question and feedback.
LessWrong has full HTML support. Actually,
Hey, Oliver. Hey, Chris. Right here, Chris. Thanks for the talk. I run this program for content creators who are focused on educating people about AI topics. I think one thing I worry a lot about is you both talked about how in the next year there's a big possibility that AI becomes pretty good, where most people are kind of fooled by looking at the text and not being able to identify if it's human or AI. And I'm also seeing this push from a lot of institutions now that are like companies where now that text and content is being productized, they can sort of like just buy out a lot of different platforms. For example, OpenAI recently bought TBPN, which is like a podcast network. And A16Z is running their own program where they're buying out content creators. And it seems like there's this new productization of content so that they can just persuade more people to convince them about their ideas, which really concerns me. I wanted to learn your thoughts on how that could play out in the next maybe few years.
Sorry, so there's a question, what happens if AI labs buy out all of the independent media creators like they buy everything else out and control the world?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know, man. Seems like a toughie. Well, maybe the...
Have any big Substack channels been, like Substack, like pages been bought by like big media networks?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Free Press sold for $150 million to Paramount. And TBPN had a small on the side Substack, but was not primarily a Substack.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting if you accept the like woo thing that I'm maybe gesturing at, which is like, hey, the thing you're buying is perspective. The thing that you're getting value from is this kind of like, is somebody making something they believe in? Can you still keep doing that if you get bought by OpenAI? Can you still keep doing that if you're running in some other way? Can you still keep doing that if you're a AI version of yourself? I don't know. It will be interesting.
Yeah, I think maybe it's my favorite sentence that Scott ever wrote in an essay, which was, God, I really wish I remembered it more distinctly. Maybe Scott remembers it. It was like authenticity is like the key to like winning on the internet. Like as soon as you can fake that, you got it made. I definitely remember it in an essay from you. But like that felt like, I'm just like, nah, man, at some point we're going to really figure out how to fake the authenticity, and then people will buy it because they think it's authentic. But, hopefully. Any other questions? Over there.
Oliver, I think you sort of alluded to this when you were talking about Hacker News, but something I've noticed in my own personal reading of the internet is I now have this background thread I can't turn off of like looking at everything I see and wondering if it's AI generated. And this is such a like low-level psychic tax that it is like decreasing my enjoyment of all internet browsing, even if it's like even if I'm reading someone I know that is like I know is not reading it using AI, and like it helps a little if I know them, and like LessWrong helps because like I know you're running the Pangram thing. But like, do you think is this just like the permanent? Is this going to be the permanent human condition going forward? Like this low-level stress of like, and like I actually think that this. Sam Chris had the same thing, and this contributed to the vehemence of that essay. Like, he just ran this thread so much that it drove him crazy.
Yeah. Well, for better or for worse, and that's kind of related to the last sentence that I said, like, I think Gwern just had like an essay on like guardian angels, like a lot of the experiments that I've been running on LessWrong on trying to get AIs to use things. And I also think the labs have been leading in this direction of like, I think probably within a year or two, like the models will become really good at imitating like what you sound like and what you're like in ways that's genuinely hard to distinguish. And I don't know, like my best guess is like it will start feeling much more like you just, right now, I think a lot of the reason why that loop is there is the fact that you can usually tell. Like when Sam Chris is like, subtitle, like you thought I couldn't tell, I definitely can tell. I do think that just like having played around a lot with like trying to get the models to behave more like base models, trying to get them to be more like read more like the office that they're trying to imitate, you can just get there. I think for me the big shift where I was like very confident the internet was going in this direction was like 6 to 7 months ago. No, it was actually 1.5 years ago. Yeah, about 12 to 13 months. I started experimenting with like using base models in like LessWrong and just experiments, and at some point, it generated a set of comments. Like I had it set up to like generate new comments of mine in a comment thread that were written by me. And I looked at it and I was like, if a colleague of mine came to me and was like, Ollie, why the fuck did you say this really dumb thing 3 years ago? And like handed me that comment, I could not tell. Like I could be gaslit into having written the comment myself and being like, oh man, I sure said that. I guess I like was wrong at the time, or like I just like was good enough to fool me thinking that I'd written it myself. And it wasn't like a whole essay. Like, I don't think it can do it for like a whole essay with an argumentative structure. It's like a 2.5 paragraph comment. But I'm just like, I think we'll just get there, and then that thread will be useless, and you will stop doing that. And my guess is it will be replaced with a deeper sense of paranoia and unease, and that will be the future.
I think we'll develop new norms. I think there's going to be like cultural adaptation to this stuff, even if we don't understand it, or even if we don't have deep theories about why. You'll have these feelings, and you're already having them. Like, the fact that these things make your skin crawl is not a rational response. There's something else going on. I think it'll be interesting to see what people do.
Yeah. Another question?
Hey, so you mentioned that books and essays are a way of merging subjectivity. In a sense, language models are also a way of merging subjectivity. Do you think this function of merging subjectivity could be best handled by language models in the future, rather than by books or essays?
So I'm not fully sure I understood the question, but I'm going to answer a version that I have something really interesting to say about. Like, the closest that I've been thinking about is like, I was experimenting with these language models imitating users on LessWrong, and like the most fun experiences that I've had were situations where I hit autocomplete on having the model continue to thread, and it would generate a whole back and forth between two participants in a LessWrong comment thread. So instead of just being like, I was writing a comment, I was like talking, I think, to a random comment thread with Gwern, and then I was hitting autocomplete and was generating a comment by me, and then a comment by imaginary Gwern, and then a comment by imaginary me. And we like had a whole fun conversation in our simulated thing that like had some interesting insights, and was indeed more interesting than like reading like either the initial completion. So definitely, like, I have considered doing it, like, I've considered doing a thing on LessWrong where like we just simulate comment threads between you and other people, and just like make it so that we just like, you have a conversation with someone, we just like, hey, this is what we simulate their response is going to be, and what will you think, what will they think, what will you think, and then we just show you the end result of that, and it could be an interesting content type. That's kind of the closest to like using the LLMs, who are very good at imitating specific people, to like, in some sense, like do intersubjectivity merging. But I'm not sure, in as much as you mean something more like using the LLMs to like understand, you've talked a lot about using the LLMs to understand other people better and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess what I meant is right now, the way that you get knowledge from people, right, is like something and you read it. Obviously, there's a lot of other ways to like get knowledge from people. But could it be that the best way to get knowledge from people is actually for those people to help train an LLM that has that information, and then for people to then get that information from the LLM, essentially making the LLM like the key node?
The thing that makes me wonder, the version of that I could see working is if you could make an LLM that is very deeply representative of specifically your perspective. The same way that a really well-written essay is a very like tightly constrained representation of your perspective. If it was not just like, hey, it's Claude, it's got a million different perspectives in it, you can prompt it the right way, it can make a different one. But if there was a way that you could spend a lot of your time kind of giving it your thought, giving it your specific, turning it into like the very strong representation of you, I could see that then giving me the same feeling at the other end of, hey, I've kind of engaged deeply with your specific world. Otherwise, I don't know. Otherwise, I don't know whose subjectivity you would be merging. But
yeah, I do think there's like a broader topic of just like Gwen has written about this, of like, I do think like one of the big reasons to be a long-form internet essay writer right now is that the LLMs will read you, and then everyone will somehow, like, you are the training set, and that makes a non-trivial difference of like to what degree your ideas will spread around the world, and that matters. Any other questions? Hello, up here in the front.
Hi, my name is Afra Wong, and I write a Substack newsletter. Started writing last year. I really thought about two writers talking about writing itself. One would be Ted Chiang, who famously anti-LLM, and what he said is writing for a writer is an art of practice. And what is art? Art is a highly concentrated intention. And another writer I think about is Joan Didion. She said, writing itself is the act of saying, I, imposing myself upon other people, and other people shall listen to me, say it my way, and change your mind. So she was mentioning writing is, in a sense, an act of aggression. And the reader is a subject of subordination. So in a sense, I feel like there's a pure artistic contract between writers and readers, where writers be like, I am presenting you my concentrated intention here. And the reader says, I am going to subordinate myself to read your concentrated intentionality. And this contract doesn't work with the writing of AI, because when an AI can write a lot of things for you, the AI can simultaneously write a lot of things for other people simultaneously. So there's no concentrated intention here. So I constantly feel betrayed or violated if I do write something that's written by AI. So I think from this perspective, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
An act of aggression. Maybe we shouldn't train the AIs to write good essays. Who knows what that would do? It's funny. It sounds very woo to me when you put it that way. Like the purity of intention. I don't really know what that means, but I think it might be right, and it puts me in an uncomfortable place.
Yeah. I mean, mostly I think the things that you said kind of resonated with some of the things about, like, the Sasha Chapin essay about, like, intersubjectivity-merging, like, a lot of the things that we covered. I mean, I do think that, like, Ted Chiang in particular has just, like, clearly, like, is confused somewhere, like, when he, like, asserts a lot of facts about AIs that I think are false. And so there's, like, I do think there's, like, a hope or, like, some desperation in trying to cling towards something being false about AI, because if it isn't, that, like, really impinges on your feeling of dignity and identity and, like, place in society. And I'm like, people grieve in different ways. Like, my current guess is, like, people are understanding that, like, AIs will be able to replace them. They're currently struggling against that. Eventually, they will have to accept it. And I do think that, like, some of this is, like, cope.
Maybe that's a good note to call it on. Should we wrap up?
Let's do it.
Thank you for sitting through so long of us being just confused on stage together. Fun to be confused together. We really appreciate you.
Thanks so much.